And he said to me, My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. The Apostle Paul recognized that we have no real power in ourselves except for Christ in us. And he explains in Philippians chapter 3 verse 4 to 7 that even though he has quite a list of impressive achievements, he counts all those are lost for the sake of Christ. They are worthless, even having negative value in comparison to the joy of knowing Christ. In verse 1, Paul provides an example of how a person should not find his or her identity and confidence in personal achievements, because only God's grace is sufficient. While showing mercy means not giving to someone what he does deserve, showing grace means giving to someone what he doesn't deserve. God shows grace in giving us life and providing for us and strengthening us for the path ahead. That grace is sufficient. It is all we need. To illustrate the principle, Paul tells of a man who was caught up to the third heaven and saw and heard indescribable things. This man was remarkably privileged, and it seems apparent in the context that Paul is talking about himself. He adds that because of the greatness of the revelation he was given, he was also given a thorn in his flesh that would keep him from exalting himself. While Paul tells us very little about the nature of this thorn, he makes clear that its purpose was to help ensure his humility. Paul begged God that this thorn might go away, and God repeatedly said no to Paul's request. God's response to Paul is, My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. God was reminding Paul that the strength behind Paul's ministry was not Paul's experience or abilities, nor was it the absence of difficulty. On the contrary, Paul's ability to be faithful in ministry and survive incredibly difficult times was due to God's grace. God's grace is sufficient when we are weak. Christ's strength is even more evident. Paul could rejoice and boast in God because Paul knew the power that God exerted in Paul's life through God's grace. He provides the strength for us to withstand whatever challenges are before us. He explained that he has learned how to be content in any circumstance, no matter how severe, when things are going well or when things are going badly. Paul knows that contentment doesn't come from circumstances. Contentment comes from recognizing that we can do whatever God intends for us to do through Christ who strengthens us. God is so gracious to provide strength when it is needed so that we can find our identity, our confidence, and our contentment in Him. When we are in a position of need, it allows us to see how much we need God. The more aware we are of our weakness, the more God can reveal His power through us. We now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God, not from ourselves. God's great power and sufficiency rests on us as we put our faith in Him and find our strength in Him, and He is glorified. This is what God meant when He said that His grace is sufficient. The Lord's presence is all we need. To God be the glory. God bless you.